Good morning. I am Steve Weber, and I am the host of the American Gumption Morning Show. And let me change one of the logos there because didn't have my spirituality gone wild logo in the upper. Let's see, would that be your left corner, I guess? And anyway, here we are. So it's Wednesday, November 4th, and a gorgeous day in the East Coast. The sun is shining. It's going to get up into the 60s and not a cloud in the sky. The last couple of days were very clear also, but kind of windy and cooler. So anyway, beautiful couple of days coming up here in the East Coast. Believe it or not, yesterday was election day and the sun came up today. So I'm happy to report that. Alrighty, so I have a guest coming up, Michelle Nilson, who is going to join us in about 15 minutes from now. And she is a flower and vibrational essence therapist. And so we'll get into all about flower essence. And it's actually a pretty fascinating topic. I learned a lot about it the last couple of days. And so we'll have a great conversation, and she'll fill us in on what that means and how that helps people. Alrighty, and then I do have a monologue, and my monologue today is running away or running towards. Which way are you running? Running away or running towards? And a couple of show announcements. I will be broadcasting live tomorrow, although I don't have a guest at this moment scheduled. So we'll see what happens that way. Friday, Austin J. Haynes comes back. Austin is a life and business turnaround specialist. So if your life is at a place where you want to take a different turn, a new direction, then that would be a great show to tune into on Friday. All righty. So, let's go ahead and just launch right into I'll change one of my banners down below, put the American Gumption banner down there. Let's talk about today's topic or monologue is running towards or running away or running towards. And so in the movie Forrest Gump, Jenny had been running all over the country, running around the country, I should say. And she ends up coming back home to Greenbow, Alabama. And she, Forrest welcomes her into the house and she can stay there and says, okay, I'm going to, she's like sleeping and she's getting rested up, and Forrest is hanging out with her, and of course he's in love with her, and they're watching TV one night, and he proposes marriage, and she says, "You don't want to marry me," and she still had the demons running around inside of her head, and Forrest goes to sleep, and then Jenny comes into his bedroom, and they make love, and the next morning we see Forrest still sound asleep, and Jenny is leaving the house, and she goes out to the taxi, and the taxi driver says, "Where are you running off to?" And she says, "I ain't running," and she gets in the car and slams the door, and the thing is she was running away, and it's too much for her. She wasn't ready to open up her heart and be with Forrest, and the simple thing for her to do, or the easy thing for her to do, was to go ahead and leave and run off. All right. So now a couple of years ago, I'm about 10 years living in Montana, and the backstory is that I moved to Montana, and I had one vision of how things were going to work out, and lots of things changed. The 2007, 2008 stock market or real estate collapse. I had, invested in quite a few different real estate properties. And so I get there and I have these I'm property rich, but cash poor. And so I end up, selling and liquidating a lot of the properties. And so this vision and dream I had of moving there, right from the get-go kind of changed. And that had been in place since 2003, 2004 timeframe. So there was several years in planning for it. And then finally you go and you do it. And then of course, economically things changed. And so anyway, now I'm there, and economically everything had changed for me. So, and at the same time, things had changed for me in the sense that I was changing my vision of who I wanted to be. And I was really deciding, taking the Gump character, the life lessons from the movie, the principles of Gumption that I was only in the process of inventing and making up, and that became really more of my interest. And all of the things and the tools and the ideas of property management and all of the things that I had kind of a vision and dream of what I would be doing when I got there, those were kind of left in the wayside and never happened. And there was barns full of tools that never were getting used. And so because my interest had changed and my goals had changed, circumstances had changed. All right. So now you fast forward 10 years and I had, still had some kind of a holding on to that original dream that I had, figuring out, well, how can I, what pieces of it can I save and how can I still make it work in some way? And I loved living there. The Bitterroot Valley is just a gorgeous, fantastic place with the mountains on both sides of the valley. It's about a 50-mile long valley going north to south and only 8 or 9 miles wide. So the mountains are just there the whole time. And it's just a gorgeous place. And I really enjoyed living there and did a lot of writing and did a lot of personal development work during that time. And as I said, invented all that. So now you kind of fast forward to just a couple years ago. And I was realizing that some of the things that I felt like I needed to do, both personally and professionally, were going to require that I end up doing more traveling, leaving the valley. I wasn't still sure what was going to happen. And I still had the vision that I was going to, that was going to be my home and that would be my base forever and ever. And I would keep that there. And so then when I finally started really liquidating things and getting rid of things, after a certain point, I got to a place where it was like, oh my gosh, I could just get rid of everything and go and kind of like, free myself up from this. So that's what I ultimately decided to do. And I got rid of everything else that I had, all these tools and barns full of stuff, liquidated it all and got out of there. But I remember a good friend, a dear friend who, when I moved to town, was a neighbor, befriended me, introduced me to lots of people in town. I ended up getting involved in the community because of him. And over the years, we just had a nice, solid friendship. And he knew of all of the different things that I had originally planned to do and the way it kind of evolved and changed and, turned into something very, very different. So when I made the choice to leave, he was the one person that I knew that I needed to go and talk to and tell him face to face that I was going to be leaving. And I remember he was, disappointed, and he said, and he have a friend, and of course, you don't want your friend to leave, of course. And he said, man, I just feel like you're running away. And I didn't say anything at that moment. I didn't react to it. But I went home and that really, sunk into me. And I was like, am I running away? Am I running away? And I just wasn't, you wanted to ask yourself that question and honestly admit, gee, am I really running away? And what I realized is that no, I was running to the next chapter of my life, and that it just happened. It needed to be elsewhere. And at that moment in time, I came to realize that what the Montana experience for me was all about. It was really all about, going through a personal growth and spiritual growth and reprioritizing what was important in my life. I had carried, you grow up, you're a child, you learn certain things, and nothing wrong with that. Good. Very happy in terms of it got me up to my 50th year before I got to Montana. But I remember I looked at things and I went, gee, is this really true? Do I really believe this? And I went through 5 years intense, 2009 to 2014, and then another, 5 years of personal growth. And then I was like, oh, Montana was all about that personal growth and really preparing me for this next chapter of my life, the American Gumption journey that I'm really now embarking on. And so it was like, but I needed to do all those things that I had done. And so I looked at it and it's like I was, Forrest Gump for 15 years. I needed to recover and rest from that. It was kind of a crazy, weird time of my life. It was fun, no complaints. It was awesome. And then developing the principles of Gumption and and being able to stare and look at the mountains for several years. So it was a wonderful time. But I decided that I needed to leave and go out and do that. So put that past behind me and go on with it. All right. So then the last thing I wanted to say is the Bitterroot. I kind of, and this happened at the end, when I started saying I'm leaving and people kept coming out and go, people would come to me and say, the Bitterroot is a place that people come and heal. And it's not a place that people come and, live their destiny. It's like a transition place for people. They come, and I had never heard that. I didn't know that. I thought it was a place, and I ended up hearing that story at least 4 or 5 different times from people who, it's like, well, where's this written down? How do you know about this? How come I didn't hear about this before? And so anyway, the Bitterroot was for me a very big transition period. I'm very happy with it. Now, the reason why I wanted to share that story is because our guest coming up has a not the exact same story, but she ended up living in the Bitterroot for 3 years. And that's when we met. And then she was called to run to a different new place, and that's where she is today. And so we're gonna check in with her, and let's just make an adjustment or two here. We'll put up her natureessencealchemy.com website, and we will welcome Michelle Nilson to the American Gumption Morning Show. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Now, we have a protocol for any time a guest comes to the show for the first time. And I have a little bio that I've put together that explains who you are. And then I have a song that I want to play. And it's called the First Time Guest American Morning Show. And so if you ever come back again, you'll never, we won't be able to play that for you again.
Oh, darn it.
So let me introduce people who you are, and then we'll play the song, and then we'll get into a conversation. How does that sound?
That's perfect.
All righty. So Michelle Nilson is a certified flower essence practitioner with a background in holistic wellness modalities. She has trained in Reiki, herbal healing, aromatherapy, and flower, gem, and vibrational therapies, which is what we'll get into deep today. Things that are important to Michelle include spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health. Her wish is to help others achieve that same sense of well-being for themselves. Michelle lovingly produces her own flower essences in Ireland under the name Nature's Essence Alchemy. Nature's Essence Alchemy. And there's the website right below, nature'sessencealchemy.com. All right. As a flower essence practitioner, Michelle works with clients to help them increase their quality of life using flower, gem, and environmental essences, either in person or online. So you're available. There's no stopping us these days. We're connected with people, whether we have to do it this way or where we, face to face, temporarily on hold. All right. So American is an American expat living in Ireland since 2012. Ireland is the place of her ancestors and the place that she was called to learn about Celtic wisdom. Michelle Nilson, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Thank you, Steve.
All righty. Well, let's go ahead and play the song, and then we'll get into a nice conversation. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a broadcast before?
No, that is fabulous.
Well, we play that for everybody, and maybe that makes you reminds you a little bit about America. I don't know.
It does, actually. I was like, geez, I haven't heard one of those marching bands in a long time.
Well, great. Hey, we're going to get into we'll get into the Bitterroot, and we'll get into you're moving to Ireland, which are great stories. But before that, let's start at kind of at the beginning. Tell us about your grandfather and the influence that he had on you.
Yeah, my grandfather was somebody that I consider a nature whisperer. Yeah, and to somebody who doesn't really understand what that is, I would have watched him growing up from the time I was, a baby till, my teens, tending his garden, speaking to the plants like they were babies, basically, and, very lovingly tending them. And every day he was out there, kind of, you could see him. He was speaking to the plants. He was lovingly holding them. Sometimes I'd see him just kind of almost like he was in communion with them, if that makes any sense. So, for me, I thought that was a normal thing. I learned from his ability to do that. He also was, very close to the animal kingdom as well. So, I'd say he really, was more in tune with that than the human kingdom. But, every spring we would go to the nursery, the plant nursery, and there would be all the new shoots and all the new baby chicks and different things, the bunny rabbits and everything. And we'd be going in, and he'd say, look at all the new babies, and he'd take me around, and I came to really appreciate nature through his eyes, through his experience. So in a way that's kind of led me full circle into what I'm doing. I've done other things through the nature kingdom, but this really is aligned to my soul and the way I believe about things. And so anyways, yeah, that was my grandfather. He was really special to me. So
grandparents and grandchildren have a special relationship, but it sounds like the one that you had with him and in the plant and the animal connection, and you said that he almost related to plants and animals better than humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it sounds like your relationship, I'm sure there were other children around or grandchildren, but it sounds like the two of you you were one of his prized students as far as hanging out and learning from him and just kind of connecting in a way that only a child can do, and with the love of a grandparent. So that's pretty special.
It was. And, I have to say, it's one of the strongest bonds I've felt with another human being in this lifetime, because we could sit for hours and not speak to one another. We might be sitting out in the garden somewhere, or, out in a park, and we wouldn't have to even speak, but it was just this mutual, love and understanding between us. And it was really beautiful. So I really feel blessed to have been able to have that growing up.
So in the late 2008 timeframe, 2009, kind of that same timeframe I talked about in my monologue when I ended up going to the Bitterroot, you were in Arizona, and then somehow or another you decided that you were destined to come to Montana. What happened, in that timeframe, and how did you end up in the Bitterroot Valley?
It's an interesting story, because at the end of 2007, I had moved from my home in Florida to Arizona, which was, my dream to live somewhere in the Western states, because I had been in Wyoming for 14 years, from the years 1986 to the years 2000. So I was really, there was something about the Western United States that really drew me. And a lot of it had to do with the Native American influence. And that's another big part of my story as well. But I decided that I wanted to move back to Arizona, because I thought, I really feel that it's kind of my spiritual home, because Sedona, every time I went there, I had gone there numerous times in my life. And there was just this thing inside of me that kept saying, I need to be here. I need to be here. So in that year, which I can't even believe it was only a year because it seemed longer than that, what happened is I started to learn the things that I had really wanted to learn. So I started learning about essential oils. I had a woman that I was going to named Feather Jones in Sedona that was my herbal teacher. She was, doing one-on-one classes with me. And then I had other experiences with the Native Americans. So there was a lot of stuff around nature that was moving in my life. And then I decided to go into partnership with somebody for a business around spirituality. We had a lot of spiritual items in the shop. And I met a lot of really cool people through that. But what happened is, as everybody knows, at the end of 2008, the economy tanked and a lot of people lost businesses, homes, a lot of different, types of things. So what happened to me is I had a choice to make, because I was basically out of money and I had to figure out what to do. And I had friends, I had a decision. I had friends in Northern California and I had friends in Montana that were both telling me I should come there. And through some major coincidences, and after some prayer that I had done at a really sacred space there in Arizona, I had asked for some help in where I should go. So I went into work that night as a hostess in a restaurant. And one of the waitresses came up to me and she said, oh, by the way, we have a table of 9 coming in about 15 minutes. We need to get them all set up. And I said, oh, where'd that come from? I didn't know we had that. And she goes, oh, yeah, they were kind of a last minute booking. And I said, oh, okay. So we, did everything really quick and they came in. And I was looking at the name that was on the actual reservation, and it was Krist. And I had been praying, to Jesus and all of my helpers that day at this place. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So I began to talk to some of the people at the table, and it was this man's 80th birthday, and he had family that had come in from different places. And it just so happened that one of the men came past the bar where I was standing, and he said, oh, this is really nice what you guys have done for us and set it up and everything. And somehow we got onto the conversation about where he was from. And he said, I'm from Northern California. And I went, oh, okay. So then the older gentleman whose birthday it was came up to the till, the register, and he goes, thank you so much. He was saying the same thing. Thank you so much for what you're doing here. And we're really enjoying ourselves. And I asked him, I said, where are you all from? And he said, oh, we're living here in Cornville, Arizona at the moment, but we're from Missoula, Montana. And I went, oh my God, And so anyways, I said, well, what do you think about Missoula? And he said, oh, we love it there. And I said, okay. So I said, thank you to all my spirit helper guides, because I said, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. And literally, I think it was a week later, I was on the road to Montana.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny when we get tuned into the signals and the answers, they will come to us. And it's really about allowing.
Yes.
It's not about just asking. It's about, the asking part is easy. And what I've been learning in these last, few years is learning how to allow. And so you had just allowed yourself to go and find the bitter root. So now you're up there living, and we'll get to the point where we met, because we only really met one time, but we had a nice connection and conversation. But you got there and you ended up hooking up with Alaska Essences. So tell us about Alaska Essences and how that changed your life.
Well, that was an interesting story as well, because that was another thing that was happening, that when I moved there, people were telling me, oh, you're not living too far away from this place that does these, and they thought they were little essences or essential oils. And I said, oh, really? I said, where is that? And I could never get an answer about where this place was. And I thought, this is interesting. Why does this keep coming up? But then something happened about 3 months into my living there. I was working at a tree nursery, and I thought I was going to be working there, being out in nature, which I love. And I ended up at a desk job 8 hours a day, making phone calls, looking out the window going, I want to be out there. And I remember I got in my car one day, and I was like, okay, guys, I've had enough of this. I can't really do this. This is soul destroying work for me, And the thing that happens for me a lot is birds will come in, especially birds of prey like the hawks. Mm-hmm. And immediately at that point, there were 2 red-tailed hawks that swooped down at my level while I was sitting in the car near the windscreen. And I went, okay, thank you for hearing my prayer. So later that day, I got a text from a good friend saying, we need to talk. When are you available? And I said, well, I'll be home soon. I can call you then. So I called her, and she said that one of her friends had come to see her and have a talk with her at a coffee shop. And that friend was Marnie. And in that conversation, Marnie had said to her, do you know of anybody that, I'm kind of at the last minute here. She said, do you know of anybody that might want a job where I'm working? So she started telling her about the job, and the girl said, I have the perfect person for you. Mm. So literally within a day, Marnie had come to talk to me about it, and a day later, I was working at Alaska Essences.
You were back. You weren't inside at the deck counter looking out the window any longer.
Oh God, no! And it was, it served its purpose, but like whatever was going on in the interim, there it was like almost like a placeholder until I could get this other job. But the funny thing is that nobody leaves Alaskan Essences. Like, it's such a really great place to work. But the woman who had left, she had been there 8 years. Mm. And I just stepped into that role that she was, in. So it was really interesting how it all happened. There were so many synchronicities and things, but that was the beginning of what I would say is I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
I wanted to make essences. I wanted to help people in that way because I could see how they were helping other people. When I was working there, there was just a depth to it that for me, it really resonated, with how I wanted to work in the world. So towards the end of my employment, I think this was about 2011, I started talking to Steve Johnson, who has passed in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. But he had said to me, that, I should become a practitioner. And then when I told him that I was moving to Ireland, he said, you should make your own range of essences.
Mm.
So he really gave me the confidence to kind of, when I came here to have that dream and to pursue it. So then, yeah, so really like that job was an amazing blessing in my life, and it really has brought me to where I am today.
I read the story about Steve, and so he was up in Alaska working as a forest ranger, and
Yes.
he just started somehow stumbling into the flowers in this marvelous place that he's living in, this valley that he's living in, and then did this deep dive into it over the next many years and became involved with
Yes.
all kinds of people in that industry. And then Steve was instrumental in birthing off many, many people like yourself who came and either studied or worked or both with him. And then there were
Yes.
these different groups that would meet over the years, and like it really became a worldwide community, very small community. But Steve was really kind of at the heart of it, or at least one of those people who was at the heart of it. I'm sure there were
Yes.
others too. And so anyway, that experience allowed you to know enough about the business that you were able to launch it for yourself. So before we get
Yes.
into that and Ireland, because it's fascinating, we just met at the Bitterroot Brewery one day, and maybe it was
Yes.
Tony who was there, and I remember we had a fascinating conversation just because we were both kind of on this spiritual journey, or like a discovery, awakening. I was pretty fresh at it. You had probably been at it longer than me, but I just remember it was like a fun thing, and I don't remember specifically what we talked about. I thought, oh, Michelle's great, and we connected on Facebook, and we kept in touch, or that way. We never really saw each other again, and then all of a sudden one day I hear you're moving to Ireland, and I was like, oh, I should have stopped in and said goodbye. But anyway, here we are, 10 years later having this conversation. So tell me about like that moment when you were like, when you had to run from the Bitterroot Valley, go to Ireland and begin this, like what was calling you? What was going on in your mind? Why was Ireland calling out to you?
Oh gosh, see, there's a lot to that, but what happened was I had been praying one day because I was doing a lot of prayers with the Native American tradition at the time, and I still do, but like it was really prominent at the time. But I was outside and I was saying these prayers, and I looked up in the sky, and there was this cloud that looked just like Ireland. And I was like, okay, what's that about? And I know it sounds crazy, but it was so real. And I was kind of going, okay. And literally about a couple weeks before that, I'd had a major dream that really touched me. And I kind of went, okay, I need to remember and, kind of, what do I want to say? Be led by this dream, because there were some major symbols in it. And so I thought, okay, I really need to pay attention to because I'm a real believer that nature is always going to reflect to us if we're paying attention, what we need to know. So when I saw that, I said, okay, I need to pay attention to this. I don't know what's happening, but I need to pay attention. So this was 2011. I was on a dating site, and I had just put myself out there. Nothing about Ireland on there. And the first person to respond to my thing on there, my profile, was a person from Ireland, not too far away from where my mother was born. And I went, okay, you have my attention now. What am I supposed to be doing here? So then a bunch of other things happened that, like, I literally could not have made up. Like, I was getting emails from people that were saying they were from Ireland and blah, 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 advertisements. different types of things. And then I went for a hike one day with a really good friend, and we were up in the Bitterroots, and we went up there. And as we were going along the path, I looked down. I was told to look down, and there were a bunch of 4-leaf clovers on the ground. I've never found 4-leaf clovers ever. And both of us were absolutely gobsmacked. We were just kind of going, oh my God. And I had told her this story. So she was like, oh my gosh, Michelle, you're going to Ireland. And so all these things started happening, and I went to go for my dual citizenship because my mother is from Ireland, County Kerry. So I said, you know what? We'll just see what happens here. So I went through a dual citizenship, what do you call it? Like an agency in San Francisco. And it's unheard of to get your dual citizenship before 6 months, but I got mine in 5 months. So I was gone in May 2012. I moved to Ireland in May 2012.
When you get there, was it like culture shock for you? Were people welcoming? And, how did that experience go? Because you've been there 8 years now, so it's been you've obviously adjusted and are doing quite fine,
yes.
quite well. But, what was it like initially when you got there?
It's funny you asked that, because in some ways it felt like home, to my spirit. But in other ways, there was culture shock. Because, there's different ways of, communicating, and different ways, different words for different things. And sometimes you'd say something, they kind of look at you like, what are you talking about? So, and I would be doing the same thing to them. So it took me a while to kind of, catch that groove. But what I did find, and I really enjoy this about Ireland, is that there's a slower pace of life here. And it was like I could actually feel myself kind of slowing down a bit, because I was constantly going, it felt like. Even if I was just sitting, it felt like I was kind of running. So I was kind of like, wow, I really like this feeling. And I've actually had people in Ireland say to me, why did you leave the States? Why did you leave there? And I said, because I was meant to be here. But the other part of it is that the pace of life here is so much slower, so much nicer, so much more mellow. There's not this constant, it's rare to see anybody open past 6 p.m. over here. People are closed on Sundays. Sometimes they take lunch breaks and they're closed down for an hour. There's a lot of different types of things, but they're a very modern country as well. So yeah, it's just been interesting in a lot of different ways. And I did have to adjust, but I really do enjoy the adjustment. So
you would have returned by now if it just didn't suit your if you didn't feel like the right place for you, because 8 years is a long time. It doesn't mean you have to stay there forever, and you could return at some point, but typically somebody like that would spend a few years and then return. You've passed that few year mark, so it's obviously working out for you. So well, that's great. The original gentleman who contacted you on the dating site, is he the guy who you are involved with?
And this is the interesting part of things. I got here but what happened is I got to know my family really well when I came here. I got, it's like I hadn't had that part in my life because we had lived in the United States our whole lives. So I was living very close to where my family lived. So I got to meet and, have good relationships, especially with one of my aunts who lives here. And so and then I met a lot of really good friends as well, who are still very good friends, because I'm living in a different part of the country now. But what happened is I had to come back to the States it was November of 2013 that I left. But then another man that I had met before I left Ireland had kind of showed up. And at that point, I had already made, plans to leave. And so we were talking just as friends, through the internet and everything. And just, out of the blue, I was like, oh, I'm going back to Ireland. So yeah, I came back at the end of, it was October 2014. So
Been
yeah,
there ever since.
yeah, I've
Very
been there
good.
ever since now.
So tell us about your Nature's Essence Alchemy, and when did that really start? And what were you, did you immediately get into that, or did that sort of evolve in the background for a while until it became the foreground? I mean, how did that transition work? And tell us where you're at. Kind of bring us up to date of what you're doing, because that's the real
Yes.
spiritual reason that we need to have this connection and share with it. So yeah. So
what happened is I had contacted Steve Johnson back in, I think it was the beginning of 2015. And I had asked him if he knew somebody in Europe who could do the Flower Essence Practitioner certification. He gave me a name of a woman, Sarah Turner. And then I asked another good friend here, who's also an essence producer, Ann Callahan of Indigo Essences, and she also gave me the name Sarah Turner. Oh. So I said, okay, that's where I'm going to do my training. So I contacted Sarah, and I went through her program, which was very comprehensive, and it took me 18 months to get through that program. And at the end of it, I was fully certified, and so that was at the end of, I believe, 2017. So I have been, making my own essences during this period of being here this last time. And then I've also been working with clients, as far as with the essences and how they can help them and move to a different spiritual strength within them or whatever. But yeah, so like the essences, a lot of people ask what essences, flower essences are. So to begin with, that's what the way I like to describe it is that, what we do is we place the flower in a glass bowl of spring water. First asking this flower if that's what it would like, asking if this wants to be, brought as medicine to other people, basically. So there's a ceremony that kind of goes into this whole process. But what you do is you ask the flower, in the spring water to imprint its qualities into the water. So then, in your ceremonial space, you're asking that flower, what its message is, what does it want to work on with people? So basically that's the healing qualities when you get that. So once that's made and bottled, then that can be given to a person internally. And a lot of people are if they know about essences, they know about the Bach essences, and particularly because Bach was the one who in the 1930s basically came and said, these things need to be worked on, mental, spiritual, and emotional issues for people, because they're actually causing the physical issues. So he said we need to, kind of peel back the onion layers and get in there and see what's actually causing this. So when you're working with the essences, a lot of people will be very familiar with Rescue Remedy, is why I was bringing that up. So this runs on the same premise, but each flower, each gem, each environment, they all have the different qualities that actually are imprinted into that water. And then that water is preserved in alcohol, like brandy usually. And then, a couple of drops of that are given to a person, they take a bottle home with them. Sometimes it's just one essence. Sometimes it's a blend of different essences. And that's what I work with, because I have all of the Alaskan essences. I have all mine. I have a few from a lot of other ranges. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I actually dose for that person in ceremony to see which essences would be, working best for them to, deal with any mental, emotional, or spiritual issues that they might be, going through at the moment.
I looked at your website, and the essences themselves, there's probably there's 5 or 6 pages full of them, and each page has, I don't know, 12 or 15 different essences on it. So there was quite a variety of the different flowers. So I imagine each particular flower has its own particular healing qualities. And one of the things that you said was, during the ceremony, you asked the flower what it's going to do. Do certain flowers always produce the same type of healing qualities, or do you have like wildflowers that come up with their own special, and you're hearing that kind of from the universe, from source energy, as far as what that specialty is. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because what will happen is I actually go in with a very open mind when I do these flower essences. So what happens is, when you're sitting there with the flower and you're hearing these different qualities, you're kind of going, gosh, I wonder if this is going to be very similar to somebody else who's made the same flower essence, And a lot of times when you go and you look at a flower essence that somebody else has made, you will find that they're getting a lot of the same messages, which is really interesting. So, and then there could be there's what I want to call individual kind of personalities. Certain trees, there are certain trees here that would be very revered as far as their energies go for different reasons. And, there was a thing back in the olden times here in Ireland that we called the Brehon laws, Brehon, and in case anybody wants to look that up. But that was something that it was a law that you could not cut down a tree without penalty of the law. So it was really interesting that, the Celtic people, they revered, these plants and these trees enough to say that, no, you're not allowed to be cutting these, because it will be a penalty if you do something like this. So there are a lot of trees here that are very old, and in the UK as well, that have really strong personalities. So that tree might be an oak tree, but because it's lived so long in the place that it's lived, it has its own personality and brings through its own qualities. So you kind of have to really kind of tune in to what that might be, that it's trying to bring through. So there's a lot of the same, and then there can be very individual with certain things as well. So
there's a couple of people who have checked in on the chat line, and Bettina and Scott, who are both people that I know and followers of the show. But there's a name I don't recognize, Vicky Martin Tingle. I don't know if she's somebody but I wanted to share that. So she's checking in and listening. I'm not sure where Vicky's from, but anyway, the good news is that we're connecting with people out there, and they're
lovely
responding. Yeah. So interesting, because the Alaskan essences, obviously, from the Alaska range, and you said that the ranges, and then I know our friend Marnie does Montana essence.
She does, yes.
And now you're doing Ireland essence. You don't call it that, but essentially that's where your flowers are. When you go out and you find these flowers and you put them in the bowl and you ask them to release their energy, does this have to take place out in the field, or do you gather them up and bring them back? How does that process work?
Well, what I do is I actually no, this different ranges do different things, but it's pretty standard across the board that most people do it this way. Is that well, first of all, there's like the flower keeps getting your attention, that they
Mm,
want to be made into an
okay.
essence, and we call it the calling, the flower calling. They won't leave you alone until you make the essence. So what happens is, you get yourself prepared ceremonially, and then you go to that flower that's offered itself for the healing. And basically you go to that place, and I actually put the bowl underneath or in the field of flowers that it's coming from, so it can be imparted with that energy. And I just wait. I sit with it until it's done. I just keep tuning in and keep tuning in until that flower essence is complete. And sometimes it's maybe a half hour, sometimes it's 3 or 4 hours. It just depends.
One of the things that you talked about, and this initially, or on your website, you talk about is the vibrational energy.
Yes.
Just talk a little bit about the vibrational energy, because I've kind of having read the site, I've sort of evolved my thinking about it, but I'd like to hear, like in layman's terms, like what does that mean?
Now vibration, in simple terms, like a lot of people, about probably the best way to describe it is, if you were to walk into a room just after somebody maybe had a quarrel or a fight, a lot of people will go, oh, this doesn't feel good.
Right. The bad energy.
Or if you go into a place and you kind of go, wow, it just feels so lovely in here. That at a basic level is, you're feeling the vibration of something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other way that we describe it in the flower essence world is, a lot of people, growing up, you may have been drawn to a certain tree. You may have been drawn to a certain flower. You may have been drawn to water, to a certain element. There were different things as a child, because we were so innocent and pure, basically, that, we vibrated to certain different levels of things. So when you kind of go back and you look at that, you go, oh my gosh, I was really feeling the vibration of these things. But the other thing that we do when, we're speaking to clients is, what are your favorite colors? Why is that your favorite color? Do you have any favorite flowers? And, why do you think that is? And, so it's about feeling, what is actually being emanated is a good way to describe it. So somebody that might not be attracted to, the color red, there's a reason for that. Whereas somebody else could say, oh my gosh, red is so vibrant and so beautiful. Another person might not resonate with that. So
Right.
it's about the vibration that somebody feels when they're actually either thinking or in the experience, or, what do I want to say? Just, walking through life. We all feel vibrations in different ways. And, you can see this as well with, like somebody who might be singing, that's a vibration that's emanated. Drumming is a vibration. Heartbeat is a vibration. All these things are vibrations. And really, this is what the universe is. It's just a vibration. Everything is a vibration of some sort.
With my broadcast partner, Spirituality Gone Wild, I mean, everybody is into the vibration world. So I love this, concept and this idea. We're getting to the end. So we'll have to kind of wrap up, but I want to make sure that people go and check out your website, naturesessencealchemy.com. And I know that you do, you have two things. You have what you call the essential, or light essences, which I assume are more the pre-made ones, and then you do bespoke essences where that's when you have a private consultation and you'll end up doing like a blend for someone. Is that correct? Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
So that's all part of that service. If you book a session with Michelle, and there's either like a one time or there could be multiple sessions, then you'll make up something special. And I know your cabinet behind you is filled with them. You said that you have all of the Alaskan essences and other essences from other ranges. So you have quite a collection of options to choose from, and maybe a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's how you get people.
Yes.
Well, this is great. And I think that, people who maybe aren't even familiar with this at all, and I haven't been too familiar. I mean, it resonates. I get it. The vibration is correct for me. But you think about we take vitamin supplements, and, so essences are really a supplement. And I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and his book was You Are the Placebo. And the idea that if we believe in these things, if we study these things, and we come to the conclusion that this flower is good for us, from the if nothing more than from the placebo effect, it's going to basically affect us. And clearly, like pharmaceuticals is not the future in my mind as far as healing, but nature's remedies and the thousands of years. So. One question that I didn't get to, you said that you went for Celtic wisdom. What is Celtic wisdom? Do you have a 1 minute version of what that is at this point?
Well, Celtic wisdom consists of the cycles and seasons of nature, basically, and how our ancestors actually worked with that. So in the Celtic wheel tradition, there's 8 basic times of the year. It's the cross-quarter days, and then the equinoxes and the solstices. So basically, it was, every one of those had a celebration or some sort of ceremony associated with it. So it was our ancestors' way of actually honoring each season and following the natural ways, basically. So it gave them an opportunity to know when to plant the seeds, when to, harvest, when to, basically go quiet during the winter, hibernate, to come out in the spring again. So I really believe that if we went back to that, because we are related, all of us are related to nature, everything around us, we are related to. It doesn't matter what it is, the table, we're related to it. Everything, the trees, the flowers, the sky, the clouds, the ground we walk on, Mother Earth, all of it, we're related to it. So in that tradition, they understood that fully. They knew. Yeah, so that's why I'm so interested, because it does really tie into the Native American spirituality as well. So yeah, there's a lot of correlations there.
Well, to prove that we are all connected, Vicki checked back in and she says that she's in Texas, so she let us know that.
Hi, Vicki.
and she also said that she's loving it so much. So isn't that cool?
And, that's awesome.
And Bettina Carey, my friend from Seattle, says, "Did you say you were in Carey County? Are you in Carey County?"
No, that's where my mother is from, and it's spelled Kerry. It's in the southwest part of Ireland. So,
all right. Well,
yeah, but her last name, Carey, is an Irish name.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's great. It's funny. I learned more about Alaskan Essence and Steve, and of course he's gone now, but his brand continues on, and of course Marnie's brand of Montana Essence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I want to get the rest of these people on the show and talk about this. And not that I feel like I need to be an expert, but I love talking to experts, and I love that you shared it. And I think that it's really if your vibration connects with this concept of flowers and using the healing powers of them, then this is exactly the it could be a therapy that would work very, very well for you. So
definitely.
All right. Well, what's your last say goodbye for this, at least the first visit. Maybe we'll have you back. Okay? We'll figure it out.
I'd love that.
But what would you like to close with?
Well, I just want to say to everybody that, no matter what everything looks like on the outside, we have our inner territory, our inner world to navigate and to realize that it's all inside of us. So just to really connect to that, to connect to the fact that nature is, our teacher, to, that it is our relation, and to respect it in that way. So,
all righty.
And so thank you so much, Steve, for asking me to be on here, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, 10 years later, and vibrationally we connected, and so it was just funny that I'm grateful that we were able to re-meet this way, even though you're but the world is so small. We're all connected, and there are no coincidences. The universe is proving that day after day. So this is a wonderful conversation. Please come again.
I would love that.
All righty. Well, good. Thank you so much. Whoops. All right. Well, that's it for, stay there, Michelle. We'll talk. I'm going to play the last song, and we'll connect off there one more time before to say goodbye. But I just want to remind everybody, Friday, Austin J. Haynes, life and business turnaround specialist. So if you're at a point in your life, in your career or your personal life, where you want to do some kind of a right turn or a U-turn or a left turn, then Austin's advice will be helpful to you. Alrighty, so that's it for today. I will be back tomorrow. Not 100% sure if I'll have a guest or not, but we will be here. Alrighty, so that's it. See you guys tomorrow.